What's up, it's your boy Super Mario 1990 coming at you with a spoiler-free review of The Matrix Resurrections. And honestly, they could have just kept this one in the grave, man. This wasn't it. This wasn't the one. Okay, honestly, to be fair though, they did bring in some good concepts and some good ideas. The big problem was nothing was well developed. Execution fell flat. There was too many directions, too many twists and turns with little explanation, no clear and concise focus. The new Morpheus in this movie, I just was not feeling that cat at all. Like the way the character was played, the direction they tried to go in with him. I don't know. I like nothing of it. I wasn't feeling it. I'm glad they didn't bring in Fishburne because that just would have been a huge waste of his time and talents. The new characters in this movie, I actually didn't really mind them too much. The only problem is they're just poorly developed. Uh, there's nothing really there like to make you like build a connection or care for them. It's just kind of like, oh, this so and so and this what they do, and that's it. It's nothing like in the first Matrix how the big players they had like a huge presence, they had backstory. Even small characters like APOC, Switch, or Mouse, they still had a presence and an explanation to them. But in this movie, it is just not there. It's like, oh, they're here to help Neo find Trinity and himself, and that's really it. They're kind of just there in the background. Maybe that was intentional because maybe you just care about Neo and Trinity because they're like the OGs, but I don't know. I feel like some kind of presence still should have been there for them. But overall, it just feels like the movie was really just trying to cram as many good concepts as they could into a 2 hour and 28-minute runtime. And it just doesn't go well if you don't have a clear and concise focus. You still got to have a good focus. But philosophy, which is huge, of course, in the Matrix. The Matrix, was revolutionary because of that. Reloaded tried to do it. I felt like it just didn't hit the mark. Revolutions did without it. I felt like Resurrections. I feel like did without it too. I think they called themselves doing it at one point. There was a scene where Morpheus tried to be all philosophical, but it just was done in such a bare bones way. It's like the vibes and the feels, they ain't here. This ain't hidden right. Honestly, why even have a Morpheus in this movie? That's just how I felt. Like the way he was played, they could have just done without a Morpheus in this movie, like in any shape or form. And there's actually explanation as to how you they resurrected Neo and Trinity. It's actually cool. Like hearing explanation, it's actually cool in concept. But just like everything else in this movie, where there is a good idea, when it's time to actually, plot it out and go through it, the execution just falls flat. It just falls dead. So it's like, oh, cool, that's nice. And then you see it develop, and it's kind of like, oh, this is all y'all doing? That's where y'all going with that? Okay. That's just kind of like how this whole movie was. Even the action was a letdown. The Matrix is a huge action movie, of course, too. Like back in '99, the first Matrix, it was revolutionary to the point where I feel like so many action films today and since then, a lot of action trends that you see now are kind of spawned from the first Matrix. They're kind of like responsible for that. They're kind of like disciples of the Matrix. And you would think Resurrections would come back in such a big way in the regards of the action. And in this one, I think the best bits of action that you've seen are actually in the trailers. When you watch the movie, there is more action provided, but when you watch the movie, you can see how flawed things are. The fighting choreography is just bad. It's poorly executed. You can see how obvious and fake it is. It's just choppy. Some scenes, action sequences are just a little too choppy to the point where it's like y'all got way too much going down. Like, bruh, can we like keep it down just a little bit? They do some things good here and there. They do provide some sparks here and there, like oh, some cool moments here and there. But you would think with the movie just being so much of a great action film, the first one, you would think that they would come correct with Resurrections. And to me, it's just too much done wrong that it stands out. And so it has to be graded harshly. I feel like because The Matrix, like I said, it developed so many trends in other movies in Hollywood. So it's kind of like if Resurrections is going to come back, you got to be doing it up there. You got to be like one of the best. You got to be up there with the MCU because like the MCU, they doing their thing. You got to be rivaling with them, and they kind of really didn't in this one in that regard. Uh, Overall, though, man, like I said, uh, as a sequel, I do feel like with the good ideas that they brought, I feel like as a sequel, it is the best sequel out of all the Matrices. It's better than Revolutions, which honestly that shouldn't be too hard because Revolutions was so poor that it's just sad if you can't manage to be better than that. It was slightly better than Reloaded, but I wasn't too fond of Reloaded. But I did feel like this movie would be like a notch, maybe two notches below the first Matrix. But nah, it fell well below that one. Um, but overall, like I said, even though they tried to bring in good concepts, they just did not go about fully realizing things. Too many directions, no clear and concise focus, just like no good build up like the very first Matrix did. So I give it a mediocre 6 out of 10 because it did try to introduce and bring in some things. And, ideas were interesting. It's just that running them all together how they did, they just did not do that well. And so it falls flat because of that. And I honestly think that mainly it's because the first Matrix kind of being like, I feel like the Hollywood magnum opus of some sort. Like it's just the bar is set so high. That movie was just so great that anything that comes after it is just not gonna be it. It's just not gonna do well. It's gonna fall flat. It's just gonna be embarrassing. It's gonna be unworthy of being part of the Matrix legacy, I feel like. And that's how Resurrections went. It was just like, I go back to my old opinion where the Matrix just really should have been a one and done film. They should have just never even did sequels. I'm hoping that they don't try to bring the Matrix back after Resurrections because it's just gonna be embarrassing. I don't know. Like, I don't know what direction. It feels like it doesn't matter what direction you go in or what you do with the Matrix. It's just not gonna be as good as the first, and it's gonna show. So it just should just be done. They just should not even resurrect it. They should just be done with it altogether, honestly, in my opinion. But that's just me. Like I said, a mediocre 6 out of 10. But man, this your boy Super Mario 1990, and I'm out. Peace in.